West Virginia. I was in the Great Lakes. Then came over here on December 7th. We were here together. And suddenly I was called to Guadalcanal with the 1st Marine Division. And he was called to Evo with the 3rd Marine Division. And when we came back to Hawaii, I got in the Army, and Dick got into the Air Force. And now he's up at Punchbowl, and I'm still working on it.
Are there any heroic stories that you remember from someone else, or is there, all stories are kind of?
Yeah, everybody has their own little variation.
Little embellishment here and there goes a long way.
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Audrey Vaught, and I was wondering how you felt regarding the popular conspiracy theories that President Roosevelt allowed the attacks to happen, especially regarding the fact that the 3 aircraft carriers were allowed out to sea without escort.
I don't feel that President Roosevelt actually knew what was going to happen, or he let it happen just so he could get involved in the war. You really don't start a war by having 2 fronts. You can't fight the European front, and you can't fight the Asiatic front. He didn't know it.
Yeah, actually we made a little segment with Ollie North on war stories and Fox News. And Ollie asked me the same question. He said, do you think Roosevelt knew about the war going to start? And I said, well, if he did, he didn't tell us out here. So I don't suppose he knew anything about it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You mentioned earlier that the importance of remembering Pearl Harbor. What do you think we can do to keep Pearl Harbor from becoming just a couple pages in the history book?
Like what we're doing now is to try to keep the memory of it going. After all, he's an old man. I don't know, you're 80-something. I'm going to be 86 in another week, about another month and a half. And we're doing our best to keep the knowledge in the heads of the young people coming up. We've talked to thousands, I guess, by this time, of students. Over 10,000?
Yeah, 10,000.
Not individually, but en masse.
Don't forget what you did to Memorial, too. Tell them what you did to Memorial.
Yeah. Don't forget, we're all 85 to 95, all of us Pearl Harbor survivors, so we tell the story as often as possible, and hopefully you spread the word around amongst your friends so that our objective hasn't been lost in the end.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, my name is Tyler, and I was wondering what your reaction was to the Doolittle raid on Tokyo after you heard about it.
I don't recall hearing about it myself, but we have met some of the survivors of that, and it was really a very good morale builder, I should say. But I don't recall hearing about it until after the war had ended.
And I didn't know too much about it until we made Pearl Harbor. When we made Pearl Harbor, the new movie that was taken off the old movie of Tora, 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 when we went aboard the aircraft carrier, we were sitting there on the right-hand side, all the Pearl Harbor survivors, the nurses that were at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, and the Doolittle raiders on the left were over on the left. That's about the first time I think that I even heard about the Doolittle raiders.
Thank you.
Before we do our closing, we have something I'd like to have two teachers have
It's quite intimidating following up what you guys have just heard. I'm kind of awestruck myself, so try not to fumble through it. If you can envision in your mind Pearl Harbor, it looks like a trident, like three big fingers extending in from the Pacific Ocean. And we are currently sitting on Ford Island, a couple hundred yards from where the attack took place on the big battleships. If you look, you get the finger in here, right over here, over Mr. Kinsler's right shoulder is about where we are, with the Arizona on the end and the Oklahoma probably vertically in front of us from the direction I'm facing. And all those ships were lined up as the Japanese came in. And each one of these ships that our local heroes were on is roughly the size of Chapel Hill High School. So imagine putting the high school here on a battleship, and the anchor of the Arizona weighs 19,000 pounds, and it was found over 200 feet away from where the ship is laid to rest, to give you an idea of the impact and the power of the explosion. The cost for the United States was 21 ships and hundreds of airplanes. For the Japanese, it was 55 airmen and 29 planes, 5 midget submarines that are getting a lot of attention now, and 9 of the 10 submarine pilots. The key thing is, if there's a positive come out of this, the 3 big aircraft carriers that were mentioned were out at sea, and the Japanese missed the fuel storage tank. So what was a great attack was not completely successful. And with that, Admiral Yamamoto, who was educated here in the United States, said, his famous quote, "I fear all we have done now is awaken a sleeping giant." Shortly thereafter, President Roosevelt, before Congress, gave his famous Day of Infamy speech, and war was declared, and the United States mobilized all of its resources that eventually led to victory and a new era in all of world history. And the World War II conflict, from beginning to end, lasted 6.5 years, claimed 69 million lives. If you think about the United States right now, roughly 300 million people, that's 69 million were all from the United States, that would be a quarter of our current population. So the World War II for America began here, and the ceremony on the Missouri, which is just overlooking the USS Arizona, the ceremony there lasted 23 minutes. And going back to the question about hate, as the Japanese surrender delegation came aboard, they were not saluted. And all the big, tall Marines or sailors like Mr. Kinsler were lined up to be intimidating, to show a massive physical presence, and they were not saluted. And 23 minutes later, when the ceremony was over, as they got back aboard their small boat taken back into Tokyo, they were saluted because they were no longer the enemy. So I want to thank you guys for coming out and listening. And I don't know if Rhiannon, if you've got some closing remarks, but I got a few thank yous. Or you want to go first, or?
I'd like to turn it over to Chapel Hill High School for.
All right.
Hello, Bill. This is Steve, and on behalf of the entire high school and all of our special guests, I'd like to thank you for this really interesting, excellent, exciting video presentation. And for the 2 gentlemen, thank you for your service to the country, and we will continue to honor and respect you. Thank you very much.
Well, first and foremost, I would love to thank the Chapel Hill Historical Society for making this possible. It is a history teacher's dream. It's amazing what you can do for your students when you have these type of resources. Students, thank you, and be prepared. I have learned a ton. I'm not going to shut up when I get back.